Hi and welcome to the video. In the previous videos we've now looked at deploying our Microsoft Windows Server 2019 operating system. We've also looked at deploying Windows 10 as a operating system also. And in the previous video we actually built the ad.msptech.co.uk domain. In this video we're going to look at joining a Windows 10 endpoint device to that domain, and we're also going to look at joining our second server to that domain also. We're going to jump straight into our Windows 10 device, which is what we have on the screen now, and we're on the desktop page currently, and we're going to go ahead and click File Explorer on the taskbar, and we're going to go ahead and right click on this PC and select Properties. From here we're going to get the About PC page, and if we scroll all the way down we can get to where it says Rename this PC Advanced. Whilst we are joining this to the domain, we're also going to use the opportunity to name the device so that it also follows our naming convention. Once we've clicked on the Rename this PC, we get the Systems Properties dialog box come up for us. And we can see that the lower option here is Change, and this is to rename this computer or change its domain or workgroup. So we're going to click Change, and from here it's going to ask us for the computer name, and then we're also going to be given the option of Member of, Domain or Workgroup. So, as the previous video suggested, we've already decided on our naming convention. So we're going to go ahead and name this machine. So this is going to be GBLND WDP 000000. This one's actually number 2. We've already built a 000001 device that's been added. We're going to use these in both these machines later for demos, but following the naming convention we've added the device name in, and then we're going to go ahead and select domain for member of, and it's going to prompt us to type in the domain. In this case, as our previous video indicated, it's ad.msptech.co.uk, and once we've done that we're going to go ahead and click OK. At this point, the device will now look for the domain, and once it's found it, it will ask us to authenticate. And that will be prompting us with the Windows security box. And we're going to go ahead and type in our credentials. Now at this point in time, we've only got the domain administrator account that we used previously. So we're going to go ahead and type those credentials in, and that will be administrator, and the password for such. In later videos we'll also look at creating new members of the domain, new users, security groups, etc., and applying these permissions, but for now we're just going to use the administrator. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Once that's authenticated the domain, we're going to get the pop-up that says welcome to the ad.msptech.co.uk domain, and we can go ahead and click OK to the pop-up. Now that we've made a change to the domain and computer name, it's also going to ask us to restart the device, so we can go ahead and click OK to this, and that will put us back to the Systems Property page, where it also tells us that we have to restart the computer for the changes to take effect. When we click Close, it will then ask us if we want to restart now or later. At this point we're going to click Restart Now, and that's going to start restarting the machine. This will take a few moments depending on the machine, but once we boot the machine back up, we'll get to the logon prompt. And there we are. At the logon prompt, we will notice that we still have a local user listed. However, now we have at the lower left hand corner Other User, and if we go ahead and click on Other User, what we'll notice is that we get prompted for a username, password, and we also have the sign into, and then it specifies the domain, in this case AD. Now we're going to log on to this device with our administrator account, and as a side note, it's worth noting that if you ever type in administrator into a Windows username box, it will default to a local account, and we'll demonstrate that now by typing in administrator. And as you'll see, where it says sign into AD, that will change to sign into, and in this case the device's name. This is a default feature of Windows, and we can amend this back to the domain account by putting AD backslash or domain backslash, and then it will sign us into the AD domain. When we create newer and other user accounts, then obviously we won't have to use the administrator account, but we'll cover that in a later video. For now, we're just going to go ahead and sign in with the password and the username administrator. At this point in time, as this is the first time we're logging in with this user profile, it's now going to create our local user profile on the device. And once again, depending on the machine, this could take a few moments. We'll let this run through. We're going to pause the video and we'll come back momentarily. And there we are. We're now on the Windows 10 desktop again. From here, we're just going to validate that the machine has joined to the domain, and we're also going to make sure that the device name is correct. So we're going to go ahead and click on File Explorer on the taskbar again. From here, we're going to right click on this PC and select Properties at the bottom. And from the About page here, we can see the device name and full device name. And we can clearly see that the device name is taken, and we can also see that it's .ad.msptech.co.uk is the full device name. At this point here, this machine is now part of the network. We can also validate this by checking on the Active Directory or ADDS server, and we'll see this listed. We'll cover this in the next couple of videos, and we'll also be doing some organization on OUs. But for now, this has completed the Windows 10 endpoint device being added to the domain. Now that we've added this Windows 10 device to the domain, we're now going to look at the same process but on a server operating system. So we've already, in this example, if we move over to our new server, we've created a new server, and we're going to go ahead and name this server to match our naming convention. We're also going to set a static IP address as is best practice for servers, and then we're going to join it to the domain and reboot the server. So jumping straight in, we're going to go ahead and set the IP address first. So we're going to click on File Explorer on the taskbar. We're then going to go into Control Panel, and we're going to go to View Network Status and Tasks under Network and Internet. We're going to click on Change Adapter Settings, and we're going to select our Ethernet or network card. We're going to double click that, and we'll be given the status page. We can click on Properties in the lower left corner, and from here we'll have the Ethernet Properties dialog box. We're going to select Internet Protocol version 4 or TCP IPv4, and then we're going to select Properties. From here we're going to select use the following IP address, and following our previous IP address ranges that we've selected already, we're going to go ahead and type the details in now. So we're going to set this to 10.0.10.2, as this is our second server that we're adding, and we're going to type in the subnet mask. This will pre-populate when we click on that. We're going to change that to 255.255.255.0 or /24, and we're going to set the default gateway also, in this case 10.0.10.254. Finally, in the use the following DNS server addresses, we're going to put the preferred DNS server to that of our initial server, the primary domain controller, and that is 10.0.10.1. Obviously, if you've chosen a different IP address range for your servers, then amend these details accordingly. However, in this example, this is what we're setting. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to click on Close for the Ethernet properties, and we're also going to close the Ethernet status. We then can close the network connections, and we can also close the network sharing center. At this point, it's a good idea to make sure that the network is seeing the new IP address and that we can still see the server. And we can do that by right-clicking on the Start menu, bringing up the Windows PowerShell or command prompt, and we can run a quick NS lookup. And we can see that we see our server name. In this case, GBLNDWP ADDS 001, which is our primary domain controller, and it points to the 10.0.10.1 range. So we can close the PowerShell page off, and then we can go ahead and name our server. Just like the Windows 10 endpoint, we're going to go ahead and click the File Explorer on the taskbar. We're going to right click on this PC, and then we're going to select Properties. From here we get the System Properties dialog page, and we can see the current computer name is listed, and we can click on Change Settings. This once again brings up the Systems Properties dialog box, very similar to the Windows 10 endpoint, and we can click on Change as before. And identical to last time, we're now being prompted for the computer name as well as domain or workgroup. This server is going to be our second domain controller, or AD server, so we're going to go ahead and name that accordingly. In this case it's going to be GB LND WPP ADDS 002, and then we're going to select member of domain, and in here we're going to type our domain, so ad.msptech.co.uk. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click OK. That's now, as before with the Windows 10 device, it's going to search and it's going to ask us to log in with the credentials. Once again, we're going to enter our domain admin account details, so that's administrator, and the password for that. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click OK, and that's going to attempt to authenticate and join to the domain. And as we've just seen, welcome to the ad.msptech.co.uk domain, so we can go ahead and click OK. And as before, it's going to prompt us that we need to restart, so we can click OK to this. And on the Systems Properties dialog page, we're going to click Close. At this point, it's going to prompt us again to restart, and we're going to go ahead and click Restart Now. At this point, once again, depending on the device, it may take a few moments for this to restart, but we're going to get back to that login page momentarily, and similar to before, we will walk through the logon process. And there we are on the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and press Ctrl-Delete. And as on the before with the Windows 10 device, we now have the local administrator account listed, but we also have this other user. And when we click on other user, it's going to show that we are attempting to sign into AD, which is our domain. And in the username, once again, we're going to type in administrator to log in. And as soon as we type that in, as you'll see, once again, it tries to default back to the local machine. And this only happens when using the administrator username. So we're just going to go ahead and type AD / as a prequel to the administrator username, and that will log us into the AD domain. And then we'll go ahead and type our password. And we'll log ourselves in. Identical to the Windows 10 endpoint, it's going to now build our profile and log us straight in. And at this point, we're just going to validate that all the settings are correct. So that's the host name or computer name, as well as the IP address details. So we're going to go ahead and click on our File Explorer on the taskbar, right click on this PC and select Properties. And we can see here that the computer name and full computer name details are fully listed, and we can definitely see that we're on the ad.msptech.co.uk domain. We're just going to validate that the IP address settings have also taken effect, so we can right click on the Start button, click on Windows PowerShell or Command Prompt, and we're going to use the IP config command. Once we press enter, it will give us our local IPv4 address, in this case 10.0.10.2, subnet mask, and also the default gateway as we set. We can also perform the ns lookup command to ensure that the name servers are correct. And in this case, as we can see here, it's pointing to the first server of GB LND WPP ADDS 001 on the domain, and it gives us the IP address of 10.0.10.1, which we know is correct. We can go ahead and close these all off now. At this point, we've now added a Windows 10 endpoint device, Microsoft Windows Server 10, Microsoft Windows 10, and also a Microsoft Windows Server 2019. We've added an additional server to the network. In the next video, we'll look at confirming that the devices are both added to the domain from the server side, and then we'll look at organizing the server's devices, or those devices that join the domain, into a structured hierarchy using organizational units to organize those in a logical manner.